Lesson 36. We continue reading from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, chapter 2. Sutra 16. The misery which is not yet come can and is to be avoided. This is one of my favorite sutras. Patanjali here is saying, don't be stupid. You know that certain things can lead to misery. As an example, crossing the road. I see people crossing the road, totally focused on their screen and oblivious of the traffic. Even though their light is green, it's always dangerous to cross the road. There are people who jump the red light, so that just happens. And it kind of feels like as if they're not connected with the possible danger that is lurking there while crossing the road. And it's possible they get hit and end up in the hospital or worse. Drunk driving is one of those things that causes a lot of misery for, of course, the people affected by it, but also for the driver themselves who lose their license, which they maybe need for work or for other important issues. And still people get into their car after drinking alcohol. Texting, one of the big issues. Since the car has been invented, governments around the world have worked on making traffic safer. So cars were very coarse in the beginning. If you got hit by a car, your wounds would be so terrible, you probably wouldn't survive. Cars got faster, but the manufacturers of cars try to make cars safer, not only for the people who are inside the car, but also for people who might possibly be affected by an accident with a car. Governments have improved the road system, the signaling and everything. So if you look at the statistics, from the invention and the introduction of the car, the number of deaths per 1,000 inhabitants has steadily decreased in the past 120 years or so. Except since the invention of the mobile phone, it has started to reverse. Even though cars become safer still, and infrastructure is being upgraded all the time to make it also more safe, the statistics show that the number of deaths is going up, not because of drunk driving, not because of unsafe infrastructure or cars, but because people are texting behind the wheel. And research also shows that people who are on the phone, just talking only on the phone, their behavior is very close to behavior of somebody who's drunk behind the wheel. And texting is even worse. There are many videos on YouTube, especially with trucks, people who drive as a profession, so they spend hours and hours behind the wheel, and they drink coffee while driving, but the worst is texting, and it leads to horrible incidents, accidents. Avoidable. Just make it a principle that you do not grab your phone while you're on the move. The thing here again is ego. The moment that people hear their ping, their notification, their notice, or somebody calling, their ego wants them to know, hey, who is this? Who is wanting to connect with me? And you just have to be aware of that and say, wait, I will just text back or call back the moment that I'm at the next gas station or the next coffee house, it's really a matter of control, and it's a control of ego, really. Ego comes into play here again. The misery that has not come, can, and is to be avoided is also something that smart governments do. You see, in the developed world, especially, huge investment in the police forces, and also especially in the military. And the civilized world doesn't have an army to be aggressive. They have an army just in case somebody else is aggressive. A situation that you see now, if you look at the United States and other NATO countries, they have incredibly sophisticated weaponry with which they can destroy an adversary within days if they unleash all of it. And you can see in the situation that we have now, they're trying to walk a very fine balance on a tightrope. They could destroy the country that invaded Ukraine, they could destroy that within days if they chose to do so. But they don't want escalation. They don't want what comes after it. So they're very careful. They could give Ukraine more weapons, more sophisticated weapons, but they're very careful. It's just piecemeal, very incrementally that they do that. It's kind of like salami slicing technique in which they try to expand the boundaries little by little without causing big eruptions of retaliation, and in the worst case with nuclear weapons. If they wanted to, they could, because they have prepared since World War II. They have invested and prepared, and could. They can protect themselves. And the reason why they did that and invested so much money in it is to avoid any possible misery. In relationships, if you have experience with relationships, then you know or you remember that there were times that you met somebody and there were red flags. The alarm bells were ringing and you conveniently ignored them because of certain motives, certain expectations, certain desires or emotions that were stronger than the warning signs. And in hindsight, you always scratch your head and say, I knew it. Meaning or hoping that next time you will be a little bit more paying attention to the red flags that were there but were ignored, leading to misery that you deep inside felt was going to occur sooner or later. Sutra 17, that's a little bit more complicated. The cause of that which is to be avoided is the union of the seer and the seen. This is about identification. A lot of the conflicts that we are confronted with can be avoided if we do not identify with the emotion that is triggered by the situation. So, for example, we're in a company of a number of people, and one of those people says something negative about the Netherlands. I'm Dutch, so at that moment something is triggered inside me that can cause me to freak out, get angry, blow up, and start a conflict with that person, or insult that person back, for that matter. What happened really is that as a yogi, you're basically nothing. You're just a soul. Because you stop identifying with those superficial identifications, like I'm a man, or I'm a yogi, or I'm Dutch, or I'm from Amsterdam. People from Amsterdam, because it's the capital, they think they are superior. Rotterdam is a city almost as big as Amsterdam, but Amsterdam people call Rotterdam people peasants, countryside. You see soccer. Soccer is for a certain group of spectators, it's a battlefield. Just because they identify with not only their soccer club, but with the city of which that soccer club is representative. So you have Ajax from Amsterdam and Feyenoord Rotterdam, and they meet in the middle to bash each other's brains in with clubs and motorcycle chains and what have you. It's all identification through the ego. You have countries, I think we talked about it before with another subject. You have countries, because we talked about ego many times, you have countries where you end up in jail if you say something negative or critical about the royal house. The ego. Even if it's true, you might be prosecuted for saying something that triggers people's emotion. And in Korea also there is still a law that under this law you can be prosecuted for saying something negative about another person. And even if it's true, or especially when it's true, it seems to be not correct, but it is, again, it is driven by mixing up the objective truth or reality with the emotion that is triggered through observation through the ego. So it is really about how we look at things. And the biggest cause of conflicts is this issue where we identify with something because somebody said something negative and it triggers something in us. We feel offended. Well, it's actually nothing to do with us personally. It's not personal at all. Sutra 18. The scene, the objective side of manifestation, consists of the elements and sense organs. The scene consists of the elements and sense organs, is the nature of cognition, activity, and stability, and has for its purpose providing the Purusha with experience and liberation. The first part of this sutra looks very complicated, but it is actually kind of yoga's way of scientifically explaining what the world around us is made of. And according to yoga, that's just tamas, rajas, sattva, and the way that we observe through our 5 gross senses the world around us. Very important in all of this is that there is a 6th sense, which is one of the characteristics of the crown chakra, which allows you to rise above what you perceive through your 5 gross senses. And it is in that 6th sense, your contemplative ability, that you can actually objectively look at those elements that you perceive through the 5 gross senses, rising above ego, emotion, and everything else that colors your observation. So where all this is going, you will see, is that the practical value of yoga is really that you can avoid all your misery, all the kleshas basically, by destroying ignorance, which is the cause of all the kleshas that come after it, through your ability to to see with a capital S. To see the essence of what you are confronted with, rather than the shell or the outside that causes the disruption and the conflict. But the second part of this sutra is more practical and interesting. It tells us that the world around us and all the experience that it gives us is designed by the higher powers to give us a mirror to allow us to grow and develop. So people who are not on the path of spirituality, or do not have awakened consciousness, they do not see and they will not learn. And that is why, tragically, we need to live 1 million lives in ignorance and suffering to reach enlightenment. But if you are able to see, you have the ability to contemplate, every experience in life becomes a learning moment. Everything that you do, every interaction, every mistake that you make, everything that happens teaches you something about yourself and about the world around you. And when you understand that also, you completely change your perception of failure. Because failure is something, again, because of ego, that people find very hard to deal with. While failure is actually a positive thing, if you objectively look at the experience. If you objectively look at the experience that led to failure, you learn very valuable lessons. And so you grow and develop. And once you have adopted that kind of way of functioning through observation and looking or integrating the law of cause and effect in all your experiences and observations, you are for the rest of your life, you're on a very dynamic path of growth and development. You will see 10 years later, 20 years later, and you look back and you will realize how much you have evolved, how much you have grown and developed. But you will also see that with the people that you have known all these years, that they haven't really evolved. You see that while they have maybe in a material sense evolved, maybe they saved more money, bought a bigger house or a more luxurious car, made promotion in their career, but for the rest, all they did was physically aging. They haven't really matured like you have. So the world is our playground. If we play it consciously, it leads to experience and liberation. Liberation of the soul. Sutra 19. Sutra 19 is very technical. It's not very practical, but let's go through it. The stages of the gunas is tamas, rajas, and sattva, the three conditions, are the particular, the universal, the differentiated, and undifferentiated. This is referring to how everything in life starts with a seed and it ends with a full-blown manifestation. And in between there are stages of manifestation. And the ignorant person recognizes a situation mostly in the last stage, when it is already happened, when it has already happened, where it cannot be reversed, and you're just left to deal with the consequences of it. The spiritual person, the conscious person, becomes more and more sensitive in detecting the seed of what is possibly going to unfold there. And that allows you the power to abort, to not go along, or to not allow it to unfold in an early stage where there is no damage done yet, or no damage of any significance has been done yet. As an example, I mentioned a while ago the situation in Itaewon, where too many people were flocking together, leading to 150 people tragically dying. But there were many people who saw it coming. And the logs show that 3-4 hours before actually the disaster happened, calls were made to the police. What I didn't mention at that time, it is known that there were people in Itaewon who actually decided to go to Hongdae. And they did so because they felt that something was going to go wrong. They didn't feel safe anymore. And before the whole thing escalated, they just decided to leave and party somewhere else where there were less people present. Those people had yoga or no yoga. They had the natural ability to sense the vibration of something going in the wrong direction, possibly leading to disastrous outcome. And most of the times that's not even conscious. It is something intuitive that just makes them move and take action. The misery that has not come can and must be avoided comes to mind. You feel something, if you act on it, you avoid possible danger or disaster. All right, questions? No? Okay, let's have a short break before we start with asana.